By 1944, German reconnaissance had evolved into the most sophisticated intelligence machine in military history. Every dawn brought Luftwaffe photographers soaring over Allied positions, their cameras capturing 4,000 detailed images daily, enough to photograph the entire Western Front twice each month. High above the clouds at 40,000 feet, the pressurized Junkers Ju-86P aircraft operated in thin air where no Allied fighter could reach them, their pilots smugly confident in their technological sanctuary. From Hitler's own headquarters, the elite Rohwedel Reconnaissance Unit coordinated a web of intelligence gathering that stretched across Europe. On the ground, aggressive reconnaissance battalions pushed 25-30 kilometers ahead of main forces, their 623-man units equipped with mounted squadrons, motorcycles, and scout cars. Above the North Sea, the massive LZ-130 Graf Zeppelin airship drifted silently through Allied airspace, its electronic sensors probing RAF radar stations and intercepting radio transmissions. German commanders had every reason for their confidence. Their systematic approach had detected previous Allied deceptions. Their photo interpreters could distinguish French from British units by radio techniques alone, and their intercept stations monitored thousands of enemy communications daily. They possessed what they believed were the perfect eyes in the sky, until an impossible American unit rendered them completely blind. The Abwehr operated as a precisely calibrated intelligence instrument, its three-division structure representing the pinnacle of systematic espionage organization. Section 1 controlled foreign intelligence collection through 9 specialized subsections. Army East monitored Soviet forces, Army West tracked Anglo-American movements, while technical intelligence analyzed captured equipment and enemy innovations. Each division functioned with surgical precision. Their commanders, Colonel Hans Piekenbrock, Colonel Erwin von Lahausen, and Colonel Egbert Bentivegni, forming an experienced triumvirate that had orchestrated intelligence coups across Europe. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris had constructed this machine with meticulous attention to redundancy and cross-verification. Every military district in Germany housed an Abwehrstelle, AST, each subdivided into identical espionage, sabotage, and counterintelligence sections. These local stations recruited civilian agents with remarkable efficiency, prioritizing quantity over quality to create vast networks that penetrated enemy territories. The system's strength lay not in individual brilliance but in systematic coverage. No Allied movement occurred without multiple German eyes observing, analyzing, and reporting. The integration between intelligence branches achieved unprecedented sophistication. When aerial reconnaissance detected unusual Allied activity, ground agents would immediately investigate specific locations, while signals intelligence monitored radio traffic for confirmation. The Funkabwehr, created in 1940 specifically for radio counterintelligence, represented the cutting edge of electronic warfare. Their operators meticulously catalogued every Allied transmission, building comprehensive spectrum tables that identified legitimate military traffic from suspicious communications. Any unaccounted signal triggered immediate direction-finding operations, with multiple stations triangulating transmitter locations to within meters. German commanders had witnessed their intelligence apparatus deliver decisive victories through systematic analysis. During the Norwegian campaign, Abwehr agents had provided detailed harbor layouts and defensive positions weeks before invasion. In France, their comprehensive preparation had identified every Maginot Line fortification, enabling precise artillery targeting. The system's credibility derived from consistent accuracy. German intelligence had correctly predicted Allied landing attempts in North Africa, identified British commando training facilities, and exposed resistance networks throughout occupied Europe. The methodical approach extended to traffic analysis and cryptographic warfare. The Office of Unknown Traffic, considered the Abwehr's most critical department, employed Hollerith IBM machines to process vast quantities of intercepted communications. Analysts worked with mathematical precision, categorizing every transmission by frequency, duration, and operational characteristics. When patterns emerged indicating clandestine networks, specialized teams would monitor rather than immediately destroy transmitters, allowing complete mapping of enemy organization structures. Field operations demonstrated remarkable coordination between intelligence disciplines. In occupied territories, Abwehr stations operated under diplomatic cover as Kriegsorganisation (KO) units, maintaining plausible deniability while orchestrating extensive agent networks. These stations reproduced headquarters functions at local levels, recruiting, training, and deploying operatives with standardized procedures that ensured consistent reporting quality. Each agent received specific communication protocols, emergency procedures, and verification codes that enabled headquarters to authenticate intelligence reports. The system's sophistication impressed even Allied intelligence officers who later studied captured German documents. Radio Defense Corps units maintained daily rosters, assigning optimal frequencies for interception work, ensuring maximum coverage of Allied communications. Geographic positioning calculations, performed by specialists like Dr. Derminger, eliminated mapping errors that might compromise direction-finding accuracy. Every day, detailed intelligence summaries reached subordinate units via teleprinter networks, containing frequencies, call signs, transmission schedules, and bearing fixes on enemy transmitters. German intelligence had successfully penetrated previous Allied deception attempts through systematic verification procedures. During Operation Mincemeat, careful analysis of documentation had raised suspicions among some Abwehr officers, though political pressure ultimately overrode their concerns. In Sicily, coordinated intelligence gathering from multiple sources had provided accurate invasion timing, despite Allied security measures. These successes reinforced German confidence in their methodical approach. Every intelligence report underwent cross-checking against established databases, preventing single-source deceptions from influencing operational decisions. The integration of human intelligence with technical systems created formidable analytical capabilities. Agents reported troop movements, while electronic intercepts confirmed radio traffic patterns, and aerial reconnaissance verified physical deployments. This multi-source verification became standard procedure, with intelligence summaries requiring confirmation from at least 2 independent collection methods before reaching operational commanders. The system's redundancy meant that even if one intelligence source failed, others would detect discrepancies and alert analysts to potential deceptions. Monthly reports submitted to OK demonstrated the system's comprehensive scope. The final analysis section provided detailed assessments of military, industrial, and political intelligence gathered from agent transmitters across Allied territories. These reports, divided into Eastern and Western theater summaries for security reasons, contained precise assessments of enemy capabilities, intentions, and vulnerabilities. German commanders relied heavily on this systematic intelligence flow, using it to position forces, allocate resources, and plan operations with confidence in their information superiority. By early 1944, the German intelligence machine operated at peak efficiency, its systematic approach having delivered consistent results across multiple theaters. The Abwehr's comprehensive network, sophisticated technical capabilities, and methodical verification procedures had created an intelligence apparatus that German commanders trusted implicitly. Their systematic success in detecting previous Allied deceptions, combined with technological advantages, in signals intelligence and aerial reconnaissance, convinced German leadership that no enemy force could operate undetected within their comprehensive surveillance network. This confidence would prove fatally misplaced when confronted with an American deception unit that operated beyond their systematic assumptions. While German intelligence officers refined their systematic surveillance networks, an entirely different kind of military unit materialized in the forests of Tennessee. On January 20, 1944, the War Department activated the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a designation so deliberately mundane that even seasoned military planners dismissed it as routine administrative paperwork. Colonel Harry L. Reeder arrived at the nearly deserted Camp Forest to command what appeared to be an impossible mathematical equation. 100 men tasked with impersonating 30,000. The unit's genesis represented a revolutionary departure from traditional military thinking. Lieutenant Colonel Billy Harris and Major Ralph Ingersoll had conceived something unprecedented: the first mobile, multimedia tactical deception unit in American military history. Harris provided practical implementation, while Ingersoll supplied visionary concepts, creating a hybrid organization that merged theatrical artistry with military precision. Their inspiration drew from British Operation Bertram at El Alamein, but the American approach would surpass anything previously attempted in scope and sophistication. Camp Forest became the staging ground for military innovation, unlike anything in warfare's evolution. The 23rd absorbed 4 specialized units, each representing cutting-edge deception technology. The 603rd Engineer Camouflage Battalion brought 379 soldiers recruited directly from New York and Philadelphia art schools, painters, sculptors, and designers who understood visual perception better than traditional military engineers. These artists had spent 2 years perfecting deceptive installations during Louisiana and Tennessee maneuvers, developing techniques that transformed battlefield appearances with unprecedented realism. The technical specifications of their equipment defied conventional military logic. Inflatable M4 Sherman tank replicas measured precisely 18:4, long 8:3, wide and 7:9 to the turret top, identical to genuine tanks from reconnaissance altitudes. Each rubber decoy weighed only 93 pounds compared to a real Sherman's 32-ton mass, yet could be inflated in 20 minutes using portable air compressors. Fred Patton's engineering team at US Rubber Company had created neoprene skins stretched over inflatable tube skeletons, producing visual duplicates that fooled even experienced observers at combat distances. The 3132nd Signal Service Company represented sonic warfare's cutting edge, having received specialized training at Pine Camp Army Experimental Station that no other military unit possessed. Their equipment arsenal included wire recorders, predecessors to tape recorders, paired with powerful amplifiers and speakers mounted on mobile half-tracks. The sonic range extended 15 miles, enabling operators to position speakers under cover of darkness and project sounds of armored columns, artillery movements, or infantry advances across vast territories. Each program lasted 30 minutes, providing sufficient audio content to simulate major military operations throughout extended periods. Radio deception capabilities integrated seamlessly with visual and sonic elements, creating comprehensive multimedia illusions. The 244th Signal Operations Company's 296 operators specialized in spoof radio, impersonating legitimate divisional communications with remarkable authenticity. These specialists studied genuine unit radio procedures, learning specific call signs, transmission patterns, and operational terminology that enabled them to simulate entire military formations. Their false networks coordinated precisely with inflatable equipment deployments and sonic operations, ensuring that German intercept stations would detect radio traffic consistent with visual reconnaissance observations. Personnel selection emphasized intellectual capacity over traditional military qualifications. The unit's average IQ of 190 represented one of the highest concentrations in the entire Army, with many West Point graduates and Army specialized training program participants contributing advanced educational backgrounds. Fashion designer Bill Blass, painter Ellsworth Kelly, and photographer Art Kane brought artistic expertise that traditional military training could never provide. These creative professionals understood perception, illusion, and visual storytelling in ways that conventional soldiers could not replicate. The organizational structure reflected innovative military thinking adapted to deception requirements. Company A of the 293rd Engineer Combat Battalion provided 168 combat engineers for security and forward operations, ensuring the unit could operate in close proximity to enemy forces. Colonel Reeder's command experience with armored formations proved essential for understanding how genuine military units appeared and behaved under battlefield conditions. His background with the 46th Armored Infantry Regiment enabled him to train his artists and technicians in authentic military movements and procedures. Training protocols developed from scratch, as no military literature existed for multimedia deception operations. Lieutenant Colonel Clifford G. Simonson created most standard operating procedures through experimentation and innovation rather than established doctrine. The learning process involved constant adaptation, with each exercise revealing new possibilities for coordinating visual, sonic, and radio elements into convincing military presentations. Training emphasized speed and mobility. The entire unit could deploy, establish deceptive positions, and relocate within hours of receiving orders. The logistical requirements represented engineering marvels in miniaturization and portability. Air compressors, speakers, radio equipment, and hundreds of inflatable vehicles required transportation systems that maintained operational mobility while carrying specialized equipment no other military unit possessed. Mobile operations demanded careful coordination between equipment trucks, half-tracks carrying sonic systems, and radio vehicles maintaining false communication networks. Setup procedures emphasized rapid deployment. Standard operations maintained 60-hour limits to prevent German analysis from detecting discrepancies. Manufacturing support demonstrated American industrial innovation applied to deception warfare. The consortium of U.S. Rubber, Goodyear, and Scranton Lace Curtain Manufacturing Company produced inflatable equipment using techniques developed specifically for military deception. Factory workers like 16-year-old Theresa Blay earned 49 cents per hour on night shifts, creating targets without knowing their true battlefield purpose. The production scale reached over 600 inflatable tanks, plus additional artillery pieces and aircraft, representing the largest deception equipment inventory ever assembled. By May 1944, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops had evolved into something unprecedented in military history, a complete theatrical production company equipped with advanced technology and staffed by creative professionals capable of staging convincing military performances across multiple sensory domains. Their capability to simulate two full divisions using multimedia deception represented a quantum leap beyond traditional camouflage or misdirection techniques. As they prepared for deployment to Europe, the unit possessed technological and artistic capabilities that no intelligence service had encountered, creating potential for deception operations that would challenge every assumption about battlefield reconnaissance and military identification. Throughout late spring 1944, German photo interpreters in bunkers beneath the Reich Chancellery began encountering photographic anomalies that challenged their methodical analysis procedures. The reconnaissance flights over southeastern England revealed precisely what their intelligence projections anticipated: massive Fusage, 1st US Army Group, installations stretching across airfields near Dover and Folkestone. General Patton's presence commanding these formations provided exactly the confirmation German analysts expected, given their respect for his tactical brilliance and aggressive leadership style. Yet subtle discrepancies emerged in consecutive photographic sorties that defied logical explanation. Flight Lieutenant Hans Weber's Junkers Jew 88 reconnaissance missions over Kent documented tank concentrations that appeared suspiciously pristine in aerial photographs. The vehicles displayed perfect geometric spacing, lacking the random positioning typical of combat-experienced armored units. Intelligence Section West noted these observations in daily briefings, but attributed them to American inexperience with large-scale military deployment rather than deceptive intent. German commanders had consistently underestimated American organizational capabilities, creating psychological frameworks that automatically dismissed evidence contradicting their preconceptions about Allied competence. Radio intercept stations monitoring Fusag communications detected transmission patterns that corresponded exactly with photographic intelligence, reinforcing German confidence in their analytical conclusions. The Funkabwehr operators meticulously catalogued call signs, frequency assignments, and communication protocols that matched established American military procedures. When intercepted traffic indicated massive supply movements and personnel rotations consistent with invasion preparations, German analysts experienced professional satisfaction at their systematic intelligence integration. The radio signatures provided technical verification that supported visual reconnaissance, creating compelling evidence packages that convinced even skeptical commanders. However, disturbing inconsistencies began accumulating in intelligence files that challenged systematic assumptions. Aerial photography sessions scheduled hours apart sometimes revealed identical tank formations in precisely the same positions, despite radio intercepts indicating continuous vehicular movement throughout intervening periods. German photo interpreters developed elaborate explanations for these discrepancies, American units maintaining static positions for extended periods, communication delays between headquarters and field units, or photographic timing errors during processing. Their methodical training emphasized finding rational explanations rather than questioning fundamental premises about Allied capabilities. The post-D-Day period introduced exponentially more complex analytical challenges as German reconnaissance detected impossible military phenomena across Normandy. 2 weeks after the June 6 landings, aerial observers reported mysterious light displays near the Mulberry Harbour construction sites that resembled major engineering operations occurring simultaneously at multiple locations. German intelligence possessed detailed knowledge of Mulberry Harbour specifications through captured documents and aerial surveillance, yet these additional illuminated activities suggested construction capabilities that exceeded known Allied engineering capacity. Oberst Friedrich Galen's intelligence analysts struggled to reconcile photographic evidence with established Allied force dispositions. Their systematic approach demanded logical explanations for every observed military activity, yet the Normandy observations defied conventional analysis. Reconnaissance flights documented what appeared to be complete armored divisions, maneuvering in sectors where German intelligence had confirmed minimal Allied presence through multiple independent sources. The methodical verification procedures that had previously ensured accuracy now produced contradictory conclusions that challenged fundamental assumptions about battlefield intelligence. The Brest siege operations generated the most perplexing intelligence contradictions German analysts had encountered throughout the war. Luftwaffe reconnaissance detected American forces surrounding the fortress city that appeared significantly larger than intelligence estimates for fleet core strength in that sector. Photographic analysis revealed tank concentrations, artillery positions, and supply installations suggesting two complete armored divisions preparing for coordinated assault operations. Yet German radio intelligence indicated American communications patterns inconsistent with force deployments of that magnitude, creating analytical paradoxes that defied resolution through standard procedures. General Hermann Bernhard Ramke's defenders reported direct visual contact with American tank formations that reconnaissance photography confirmed, yet captured Allied documents indicated different unit dispositions in the same geographic areas. German intelligence officers faced unprecedented analytical challenges as their systematic verification methods produced contradictory conclusions. The photographic evidence appeared authentic. Radio intercepts matched observed military activities, yet documented American force structures could not support the observed deployments. Traditional intelligence analysis required logical consistency, but the Brest situation presented irreconcilable evidence that challenged methodical assumptions. Wehrmacht commanders increasingly confronted tactical decisions based on intelligence reports that contained fundamental contradictions their analytical systems could not resolve. The systematic approach that had provided consistent battlefield intelligence throughout previous campaigns now generated conclusions that defied operational logic. German officers possessed supreme confidence in their reconnaissance capabilities, yet the accumulating anomalies suggested either complete Allied technological breakthroughs or systematic failures in German intelligence analysis, both possibilities that challenged core assumptions about warfare and reconnaissance. The psychological impact of these intelligence failures created dangerous operational blind spots as German commanders lost confidence in their analytical procedures. Oberkommando der Wehrmacht staff meetings increasingly featured heated debates about reconnaissance accuracy, with field commanders reporting enemy activities that headquarters intelligence could not verify or explain. The methodical system that had functioned effectively for years began producing analyses that experienced officers instinctively questioned, yet no alternative explanation adequately addressed the observed discrepancies. German intelligence officers developed increasingly elaborate theories to explain the inexplicable Allied activities their reconnaissance detected. Some analysts proposed that American forces possessed revolutionary camouflage technologies that could create false visual signatures, while others suggested systematic coordination between Allied deception units and genuine military formations. These hypotheses maintained logical consistency with established intelligence procedures while accommodating the contradictory evidence that challenged traditional analysis methods. The cumulative effect of these analytical failures gradually undermined German confidence in their systematic intelligence gathering. Yet no commanding officer possessed sufficient evidence to reject reconnaissance reports entirely. The photographic documentation appeared authentic, radio intercepts followed established patterns, and field observations confirmed many intelligence conclusions. German commanders faced impossible decisions based on intelligence that seemed simultaneously accurate and completely wrong, creating operational paralysis that would prove strategically devastating. By late summer 1944, German intelligence had documented numerous Allied military activities that their systematic analysis could neither verify nor adequately explain. The methodical approach that had provided battlefield superiority throughout earlier campaigns now generated intelligence reports containing fundamental contradictions that defied resolution. German commanders increasingly operated with degraded confidence in their reconnaissance capabilities, yet possessed no alternative intelligence sources that could provide clearer battlefield understanding. This erosion of analytical certainty would prove more damaging than any direct military defeat, as German strategic planning became increasingly divorced from operational reality across multiple theaters simultaneously. By September 1944, German intelligence officers across Western Europe began documenting military phenomena that violated every principle of warfare they understood. The isolated anomalies from Normandy had metastasized into systematic impossibilities that challenged the fundamental assumptions underlying German strategic planning. What had initially appeared as American inexperience or isolated analytical errors now revealed itself as something far more disturbing: the complete breakdown of German battlefield awareness across multiple theaters simultaneously. Operation Bettembourg in Luxembourg demonstrated the most bewildering intelligence failure German commanders had encountered. General Patton's Third Army had advanced so rapidly through France that a dangerous 25-kilometer gap opened between his forces and adjacent Allied units, a tactical vulnerability that should have provided Wehrmacht forces with decisive exploitation opportunities. German reconnaissance confirmed this gap through multiple independent sources. Aerial photography documented the absence of Allied formations, radio intercepts revealed no communication traffic in the sector, and ground patrols reported no enemy contact across the exposed terrain. Yet within 48 hours, German forces attempting to exploit this confirmed gap encountered massive American resistance that appeared from nowhere. Tank formations materialized overnight in areas where reconnaissance had documented empty countryside. Artillery batteries opened coordinated fire from positions that aerial photography had shown as vacant farmland. Radio intercepts suddenly detected intensive Allied communications networks operating on frequencies that German monitoring stations had classified as unused. The tactical situation transformed from obvious Allied vulnerability to overwhelming American strength without any observable movement or deployment. General der Infanterie Gustav Adolf von Zangen's staff struggled to reconcile these contradictory intelligence reports with established military logic. Their systematic analysis demanded explanations for enemy force deployments, yet the Bettembourg situation defied every analytical framework German intelligence possessed. The gap had been real, confirmed through multiple verification procedures, yet American forces now occupied positions they could not have reached through conventional movement. German commanders faced tactical decisions based on intelligence that seemed simultaneously accurate and completely false, creating operational paralysis that prevented effective counter-operations. The Hürtgen forest operations introduced even more disturbing intelligence anomalies that challenged German understanding of Allied capabilities. Wehrmacht forces defending this critical terrain possessed detailed knowledge of American positions through extensive reconnaissance and established observation posts throughout the heavily forested region. German intelligence had mapped every Allied approach route, documented supply lines, and monitored radio communications with methodical precision that should have provided complete battlefield awareness. However, American forces repeatedly appeared in locations where German intelligence had confirmed their absence through recent verification. Tank attacks emerged from forest sectors where reconnaissance had documented impenetrable terrain unsuitable for armored operations. Artillery strikes originated from grid coordinates, where aerial observation had confirmed no military installations. Infantry assaults developed from assembly areas that German patrols had recently searched and found vacant. The systematic intelligence preparation that had provided German commanders with tactical advantages throughout earlier campaigns now generated conclusions that operational experience immediately contradicted. Oberst Wilhelm Osterhold's intelligence staff documented these discrepancies in detailed reports that revealed the extent of German analytical confusion. Their observations recorded American military activities that existed in reconnaissance reports but disappeared upon direct investigation. Tank concentrations photographed during morning aerial missions vanished by afternoon reconnaissance flights, yet ground combat indicated armored formations remained active in those sectors. Radio intercepts detected divisional headquarters operating from locations where German intelligence confirmed no Allied presence through multiple verification methods. The psychological impact on German field commanders became increasingly severe as impossible tactical situations became routine operational reality. Officers who had relied on systematic intelligence analysis throughout successful campaigns found themselves commanding forces against enemies they could not locate, track, or predict. The methodical approach that had provided battlefield superiority now generated intelligence reports that experienced commanders instinctively mistrusted, yet no alternative analytical method could resolve the fundamental contradictions. Rhine crossing preparations revealed the most comprehensive intelligence failure German forces had experienced during the entire war. Wehrmacht defensive planning relied heavily on early warning systems that would detect Allied bridging operations and enable coordinated counterattacks before enemy forces could establish significant footholds. German reconnaissance possessed detailed knowledge of Allied engineering capabilities, understood their operational procedures, and maintained continuous surveillance of potential crossing sites through multiple intelligence disciplines. Yet American forces successfully completed major river crossing operations that German intelligence detected only after they achieved strategic significance. Reconnaissance flights revealed massive Allied preparations occurring simultaneously at multiple locations where previous surveillance had confirmed minimal enemy activity. Radio intercepts documented engineering communications, indicating bridge construction at sites German intelligence had recently confirmed as unsuitable for major operations. Ground observation posts reported Allied activities that contradicted established intelligence estimates for American force dispositions in those sectors. The cumulative effect of these intelligence failures created unprecedented strategic confusion at Wehrmacht command levels. German officers faced tactical situations where reconnaissance reports indicated one military reality, while combat experience revealed completely different enemy capabilities and positions. The systematic verification procedures that had prevented deception throughout earlier campaigns now produced analyses that operational commanders could neither trust nor completely reject. General Feldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt's staff meetings increasingly featured heated arguments about intelligence reliability as field reports contradicted headquarters analyses on fundamental issues. Division commanders reported enemy activities that core intelligence could not verify, while army-level reconnaissance documented Allied formations that local commanders had never encountered. The analytical consistency that had characterized German intelligence throughout successful campaigns dissolved into contradictory conclusions that challenged basic assumptions about Allied capabilities and operational methods. German technical specialists developed increasingly desperate theories to explain the inexplicable Allied activities their surveillance systems detected. Some analysts proposed revolutionary American camouflage technologies that could create false radar signatures and visual deceptions beyond anything previously imagined in warfare. Others suggested coordinated Allied deception operations involving thousands of personnel and unprecedented equipment resources that challenged German understanding of enemy organizational capabilities. The most disturbing hypothesis suggested that American forces possessed mobility and deployment capabilities that fundamentally exceeded German intelligence estimates for Allied logistical and operational capacity. This explanation required German commanders to revise their strategic assumptions about American military effectiveness. adjustments that challenged core beliefs about Wehrmacht superiority and Allied competence that had shaped German strategic planning throughout the war. By winter 1944, German intelligence had documented systematic failures across every major theatre where Allied forces operated. The methodical reconnaissance systems that had provided battlefield awareness throughout successful campaigns now generated intelligence reports containing such fundamental contradictions that commanding officers could no longer distinguish between accurate observations and systematic deceptions. German strategic planning operated with degraded confidence in reconnaissance capabilities at precisely the moment when accurate intelligence had become most critical for defensive operations. The pattern of impossibilities had evolved from isolated anomalies into systematic intelligence breakdown that challenged German commanders' understanding of modern warfare. Wehrmacht forces faced enemies they could not adequately locate, track, or predict through established analytical methods, creating operational uncertainty that would prove more damaging than direct military defeats. The German intelligence machine that had functioned with mechanical precision throughout earlier victories now produced conclusions that experienced officers instinctively questioned, yet possessed no reliable means to verify or correct. March 1945 brought the Wehrmacht's most catastrophic intelligence collapse as Operation Viersen exposed the complete bankruptcy of German reconnaissance capabilities. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops prepared their most ambitious deception yet, simulating an entire army's Rhine crossing while the real 9th Army prepared to strike elsewhere undetected. For German commanders who had witnessed months of inexplicable Allied activities, Viersen would prove that their systematic intelligence apparatus had become not merely unreliable, but systematically counterproductive. General William Simpson's 9th Army faced the ultimate test of Allied deception capabilities as they prepared to cross the Rhine near Dusseldorf. German defensive planning had concentrated massive forces along this sector, recognizing it as the most likely crossing point for major American operations. Wehrmacht intelligence possessed detailed topographical analysis, extensive fortification surveys, and comprehensive order of battle assessments that should have provided complete situational awareness for any Allied assault preparations. Yet the Ghost Army would render this accumulated intelligence worse than useless. The deception began with unprecedented scale and complexity that dwarfed all previous operations. Over 600 inflatable vehicles materialized across designated assembly areas, Sherman tanks, artillery pieces, supply trucks, and command vehicles, creating the visual signature of two complete armored divisions preparing for river assault operations. The inflation process occurred during carefully timed intervals that matched genuine military deployment schedules, ensuring German aerial reconnaissance would document realistic organizational patterns rather than suspicious simultaneous appearances. Colonel Reeder's sonic specialists positioned their most sophisticated audio equipment in coordinated arrays that projected sounds of massive engineering operations across multiple kilometers. The wire recorders played carefully orchestrated programs featuring pontoon bridge construction noises, heavy vehicle movements, and the distinctive mechanical signatures of amphibious assault preparations. German listening posts detected acoustic patterns consistent with major river crossing operations occurring exactly where their defensive planning anticipated American assault attempts. The radio deception achieved unprecedented sophistication as the signal company Special created an entirely fictitious communications network supporting the phantom 9th Army crossing. False message traffic flooded German intercept stations, with authentic military communications indicating supply movements, personnel rotations, and engineering preparations consistent with division-level operations. The radio operators had studied genuine American procedures so meticulously that German analysts detected no discrepancies in transmission patterns. call sign usage, or operational terminology. German intelligence officers monitoring these preparations experienced professional vindication as all reconnaissance disciplines provided consistent confirmatory evidence. Aerial photography documented massive Allied vehicle concentrations, signals intelligence detected intensive radio traffic, acoustic surveillance recorded engineering activities, and ground observation posts reported continuous movement patterns. The systematic verification procedures that had failed German commanders throughout previous months finally appeared to function with expected accuracy and reliability. Wehrmacht defensive commanders received intelligence briefings that provided exactly the battlefield clarity they had demanded throughout the confusion of preceding operations. The Ninth Army crossing preparations appeared as textbook military operations, visible, trackable, and entirely comprehensible through established analytical methods. German staff officers prepared defensive responses with renewed confidence in their reconnaissance capabilities, positioning forces according to intelligence assessments that seemed both technically sound and operationally logical. Yet the most disturbing element of Operation Viersen involved its extended duration. Nearly 10 days of continuous deception that tested German analytical capabilities beyond their breaking point. Previous Ghost Army operations had maintained strict 60-hour limits to prevent detailed examination, but the Rhine crossing simulation required sustained credibility that German intelligence systems could not adequately evaluate. The systematic approach that demanded logical consistency now worked against German understanding as the deception maintained perfect internal coherence across all observable parameters. German forces repositioned according to intelligence that appeared technically flawless, yet described military activities that existed only in American imagination. Wehrmacht units moved to defensive positions supporting operations against phantom divisions. Artillery concentrated on crossing sites where no genuine assault would occur, and reserve formations prepared counterattack plans targeting American forces that consisted entirely of inflatable equipment and electronic deceptions. The systematic intelligence integration that had provided German commanders with battlefield superiority throughout earlier campaigns now misdirected their forces away from actual Allied threats. The psychological impact on German intelligence officers became severe as Operation Viersen continued beyond normal deception timeframes. Analysts who had developed elaborate theories explaining previous Allied anomalies found their systematic approaches validating intelligence that operational experience would soon prove completely false. The methodical verification procedures that represented decades of professional development generated conclusions that would demonstrate their complete analytical bankruptcy within days of implementation. On March 23rd, Simpson's actual Ninth Army initiated their Rhine crossing 10 miles south of the deception site, while German forces remained concentrated against the phantom threat Viersen had created. The real crossing occurred with minimal resistance as Wehrmacht defensive preparations focused on non-existent Allied activities. German commanders monitoring the deception area detected no changes in the massive Allied presence their intelligence had documented, yet radio intercepts suddenly indicated American forces operating across the Rhine in sectors where reconnaissance had confirmed minimal enemy presence. The realization struck German intelligence with devastating psychological force as they comprehended the full scope of their systematic deception. The Ninth Army crossing that their defensive planning should have detected and disrupted had occurred while their attention focused on elaborate American theater performances. Months of inexplicable Allied activities suddenly achieved terrifying clarity as German officers understood they had been witnessing systematic multimedia deceptions rather than genuine military operations. German commanders attempted to salvage tactical situations by redeploying forces toward the actual crossing sites, but discovered their intelligence systems could no longer distinguish between authentic Allied activities and continued deceptions. Every reconnaissance report became suspect as officers realized their analytical procedures had been systematically compromised for nearly a year. The methodical approach that had provided battlefield awareness throughout successful campaigns now generated conclusions that operational commanders could neither trust nor effectively verify. The technical sophistication of Operation Viersen's revelation destroyed German confidence in their systematic intelligence capabilities more completely than any direct military defeat could achieve. Wehrmacht officers discovered that American deception operations had evolved beyond simple misdirection into comprehensive multimedia presentations that could fool every German reconnaissance discipline simultaneously. The sonic, visual, and radio elements had integrated so seamlessly that German verification procedures had confirmed entirely fictitious military activities with the same confidence they applied to genuine Allied operations. Post-operation analysis revealed that German intelligence had documented and responded to American theater rather than actual military activities for extended periods across multiple campaigns. The systematic approach that demanded logical consistency had prevented German analysts from questioning intelligence that maintained perfect internal coherence while describing completely fictional military events. Their methodical training had emphasized finding rational explanations rather than identifying fundamental deceptions, creating analytical blind spots that American creativity had exploited with devastating effectiveness. The aftermath of Operation Viersen marked the complete collapse of German intelligence credibility as Wehrmacht commanders realized their systematic reconnaissance had become actively counterproductive. Every intelligence report now required operational verification that German forces could not provide, while American deception capabilities had demonstrated the ability to create convincing military illusions that German analytical procedures could not distinguish from genuine Allied activities. The methodical intelligence machine that had provided battlefield superiority throughout earlier campaigns had been transformed into an instrument of systematic self-deception that misdirected German forces away from actual threats, while focusing their attention on American theatrical performances designed specifically to exploit their analytical assumptions and verification procedures. The captured German overlay found in the 79th Infantry Division's advance shattered the final illusions of Wehrmacht intelligence competence. Staff officers studying the document discovered their own operational map, showing American dispositions exactly where the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops had positioned their inflatable phantoms. The 79th Division marked precisely in the deception zone, while losing track of the 30th Division entirely. This single piece of paper represented the mathematical proof of systematic intelligence bankruptcy that German commanders could no longer rationalize or explain away through elaborate theoretical frameworks. General der Infanterie, Gustav Adolf von Sangen, stared at intelligence summaries documenting the impossible truth. American forces had conducted 22 major deception operations across 11 months without detection by supposedly elite German reconnaissance systems. Each operation had exploited different aspects of Wehrmacht analytical procedures, yet German intelligence had failed to identify patterns or develop countermeasures despite accumulating evidence of systematic deception. The methodical approach that represented decades of professional military development had been rendered not merely ineffective, but actively counterproductive to German strategic objectives. The revelation struck deepest among intelligence officers who had built careers on systematic analysis and methodical verification procedures. Colonel Hans Piekenbrock's Section 1 analysts discovered their comprehensive enemy assessments had documented American theatrical performances rather than genuine military activities for nearly a year. The multi-source verification that had prevented deception throughout earlier campaigns had been systematically exploited by American creativity that German analytical frameworks could not comprehend or anticipate. Wehrmacht commanders confronted the devastating realization that their technical superiority in reconnaissance had been neutralized by American psychological understanding of German analytical assumptions. The Ghost Army had succeeded not through superior technology, but through comprehensive analysis of German intelligence procedures, creating multimedia presentations specifically designed to exploit systematic verification methods. Where German approaches emphasized technical accuracy and logical consistency, American deception had provided exactly those characteristics while describing completely fictitious military events. The psychological impact extended beyond individual embarrassment to fundamental questioning of German military competence and strategic understanding. Officers who had commanded successful campaigns throughout Europe discovered their battlefield awareness had been systematically compromised by enemies they had consistently underestimated. The American multimedia approach, coordinating sonic, visual, and radio elements, represented innovation that German military doctrine had never anticipated or prepared to counter. Post-war interrogations revealed the extent to which German strategic planning had been misdirected by Ghost Army operations. Wehrmacht forces had repositioned according to intelligence describing phantom American activities, concentrated defensive preparations against non-existent threats, and allocated resources responding to theatrical presentations rather than genuine Allied capabilities. The systematic intelligence integration that had provided German commanders with battlefield superiority throughout earlier victories had been transformed into an instrument of strategic self-deception. The revelation proved particularly devastating for Abwehr professionals who had dedicated their careers to methodical intelligence analysis. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris's systematic organization, with its redundant verification procedures and multi-source confirmation requirements, had been comprehensively defeated by American understanding of German analytical psychology. The very thoroughness that had made German intelligence effective against conventional opponents had created predictable patterns that creative enemies could exploit with devastating results. German technical specialists struggled to comprehend how American forces had achieved such comprehensive deception using relatively simple equipment. The inflatable tanks weighed 93 pounds compared to genuine Sherman's 32-ton mass, yet had fooled aerial reconnaissance across dozens of operations. The sonic equipment projected recorded sounds 15 miles, but had convinced German listeners they were hearing authentic military activities. Radio deception required only skilled operators mimicking established procedures, yet had misdirected entire German intelligence networks for months. The scope of American innovation became clear as German analysts studied captured Ghost Army equipment and procedures. The 23rd had employed artists and creative professionals whose understanding of perception and illusion exceeded anything German military training provided. Fashion designers, painters, and photographers had applied civilian expertise to military deception, creating solutions that traditional Wehrmacht thinking could never have anticipated or countered effectively. Most disturbing for German commanders was recognizing how completely their systematic confidence had been exploited against them. The methodical approach that demanded logical explanations for observed phenomena had prevented German analysts from questioning intelligence that maintained perfect internal consistency while describing fictional events. American deception had succeeded by providing exactly the verification German procedures required, creating analytical blind spots that systematic training had actually reinforced rather than prevented. The strategic implications extended far beyond tactical embarrassment, as German officers realized their entire approach to modern warfare had been fundamentally challenged. The Ghost Army represented new forms of conflict where psychological understanding could neutralize technical advantages, where creativity could defeat systematic approaches, and where small units could achieve strategic effects through innovative application of multimedia deception techniques. German post-war analysis struggled to develop countermeasures for deception operations they had never imagined possible. Traditional intelligence doctrine emphasized detecting enemy activities through systematic observation, yet American success had demonstrated that systematic observation could be systematically deceived through comprehensive understanding of analytical procedures. The verification methods that had prevented deception throughout earlier campaigns had been rendered counterproductive by enemies who understood German psychology better than German commanders understood themselves. The revelation of Ghost Army capabilities forced German military leaders to reconsider fundamental assumptions about intelligence, reconnaissance, and battlefield awareness that had shaped Wehrmacht doctrine throughout the war. The systematic approach that had provided consistent results across multiple theaters had been systematically exploited by American innovation that German analytical frameworks could neither anticipate nor effectively counter once deployed. For surviving German commanders, the Ghost Army revelation represented more than tactical defeat. It demonstrated complete failure to understand the nature of modern warfare and enemy capabilities. The methodical intelligence apparatus they had trusted implicitly had been transformed into an instrument of systematic misdirection by enemies whose creative approaches transcended German analytical comprehension. The psychological impact of this realization would influence German military thinking long after the war's conclusion, as officers struggled to reconcile their systematic professional training with the devastating effectiveness of American multimedia deception operations that had rendered their most sophisticated intelligence capabilities worse than useless. The final revelation would not come for 50 years. When the Ghost Army's classified files opened in 1996, military historians discovered documentation that fundamentally challenged established narratives about World War II intelligence and deception operations. The declassification revealed not merely tactical success stories, but evidence of a paradigm shift in warfare that had remained hidden throughout the Cold War era, influencing military doctrine development without acknowledgement of its revolutionary origins. The extended classification period had served purposes beyond operational security. American military planners understood they had accidentally created something unprecedented, a multimedia deception capability that transcended traditional camouflage and misdirection techniques. The Ghost Army represented proof that psychological understanding could neutralize technical superiority, that creativity could defeat systematic approaches, and that small specialized units could achieve strategic effects through innovative application of existing technologies. These lessons required careful management to prevent adversaries from developing similar capabilities during subsequent conflicts. Modern military deception doctrine traces its theoretical foundations directly to techniques the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops pioneered through practical experimentation. Contemporary special operations units study Ghost Army methods not for historical interest, but as foundational principles for current psychological warfare applications. The integration of visual, sonic, and electronic elements that German intelligence could not distinguish from genuine military activities established templates that influence deception planning across multiple military branches today. The Congressional Gold Medal awarded in February 2022 represented more than ceremonial recognition. It acknowledged fundamental contributions to military science that had shaped American strategic thinking for decades without public acknowledgement. The legislation specifically cited the unit's unique and highly distinguished service, language that reflected government understanding of innovations whose significance extended far beyond their immediate tactical applications during World War II operations. Pentagon analysis of Ghost Army effectiveness influenced post-war military education curricula in ways that remained classified throughout the Cold War period. Staff colleges began incorporating deception planning into standard operational procedures, emphasizing psychological analysis of enemy assumptions rather than purely technical countermeasures. The recognition that systematic intelligence procedures could become systematic vulnerabilities when properly understood and exploited revolutionized American approaches to both offensive and defensive information warfare. The psychological lessons proved more enduring than technological innovations. German commanders had possessed superior reconnaissance equipment, systematic analytical procedures, and extensive verification protocols, yet American understanding of German psychology had rendered these advantages counterproductive. Modern military planners study this dynamic not as historical curiosity, but as demonstration that cognitive assumptions represent exploitable weaknesses in any systematic approach to intelligence analysis, regardless of technological sophistication. The declassified operations revealed statistical achievements that challenged traditional military effectiveness measurements. The estimated 15,000 to 30,000 Allied lives saved represented combat casualty prevention ratios unprecedented in conventional military operations. These figures demonstrated that deception units could achieve strategic impact through force multiplication effects rather than direct combat engagement, establishing models for special operations effectiveness that influence contemporary military planning priorities. International military observers studying Ghost Army documentation recognized implications extending beyond American tactical innovation. The successful integration of artistic creativity with military precision suggested new paradigms for specialized unit development that challenged traditional military training methodologies. Fashion designers, painters, and photographers had contributed capabilities that conventional military education could never provide, suggesting broader applications for civilian expertise in military contexts. The 50-year classification period had prevented comprehensive analysis of German intelligence failures until historical perspective could evaluate their significance objectively. Academic studies revealed that systematic analytical procedures, when properly understood by adversaries, could become systematic vulnerabilities rather than defensive advantages. This recognition influenced contemporary intelligence doctrine development, emphasizing adaptive rather than purely systematic approaches to analytical verification. The Ghost Army's legacy fundamentally transformed military understanding of the relationship between technology and psychology in modern warfare. German technical superiority in reconnaissance equipment had been neutralized not through superior American technology, but through superior understanding of German analytical psychology. This lesson influenced subsequent American military development priorities, emphasizing human factors, analysis alongside technological advancement in intelligence and deception capabilities. Contemporary military historians recognize the Ghost Army as representing a watershed moment in warfare evolution, when psychological operations achieved strategic significance comparable to conventional military capabilities. The unit's success demonstrated that comprehensive understanding of enemy cognitive assumptions could neutralize technological advantages, providing strategic leverage through innovative application of existing resources rather than technical superiority alone. The declassification ultimately revealed that World War II's most significant intelligence failure had resulted not from technical inadequacy, but from systematic thinking being systematically exploited by adversaries who understood those systems better than their creators. This lesson continues influencing modern military doctrine development, as commanders recognize that any systematic approach to intelligence or operations creates predictable patterns that creative enemies can exploit with devastating effectiveness. The Ghost Army's legacy endures not as historical achievement, but as foundational principle for understanding modern warfare's psychological dimensions and the enduring vulnerability of systematic thinking to innovative exploitation.